Welcome to History Channel. Be sure to subscribe and like so you don't miss out on more videos like this one. A group of Turkish members of the Hitler Youth march in perfect formation during the Nuremberg Rally of 1934, symbolizing Nazi Germany's efforts to extend its ideological influence beyond borders. The spectacle was part of a grand display of loyalty and power orchestrated by the regime each autumn. German soldiers retreat across the ruins of Westerplatte after a failed assault on the Polish military transit depot in early September 1939, carrying the body of a fallen comrade. The brief but fierce battle marked the opening shots of World War II, signaling the start of a global conflict. Chinese soldiers stand beside four captured members of the Doolittle Raid, the first American airstrike on Tokyo. After crash landing in China, the crew witnessed Japan's brutal retaliation through the Zhejiang campaign, which claimed hundreds of thousands of Chinese civilian lives during 1942. President Richard Nixon, seen through a window, waves after laying a wreath at the tomb of the unknown soldier in Paris in 1969. The solemn gesture was part of his diplomatic efforts in Europe, reflecting his administration's attempts to strengthen alliances amid global Cold War tensions. Polish Navy destroyers ORP Grom and ORP Berza sail from the Baltic Sea toward Scotland. Photograph from the deck of ORP Błyskawica, taken in late August 1939. This evacuation preceded Germany's invasion, as Poland sought to preserve part of its fleet to continue the fight abroad. Bundestag member Wolfgang Hedler appears bloodied after being beaten by Social Democratic deputies in Bonn. March 1950. The attack followed his inflammatory pro-Hitler and anti-Semitic remarks, revealing the deep post-war divisions and the struggle of Germany's young democracy to confront its Nazi past. Kenneth Arnold holds an illustration of the strange flying objects he reported in 1947, describing them as moving like saucers skipping on water. His account became the first modern UFO sighting, and a reporter's misinterpretation coined the now famous term flying saucer, changing pop culture forever. 6-year-old Carl Newton Mahan sits quietly during his court hearing after fatally shooting another boy during a quarrel in Kentucky. 1929. His tragic case, making him the youngest person ever tried for murder in the United States, sparked nationwide debate on childhood innocence and justice. An Inuk trapper proudly displays furs and goods at a Hudson's Bay Company trading post in Kugluktuk, Nunavut. 1949. The image captures a moment of traditional livelihood amid Canada's northern frontier, reflecting the resilience and self-sufficiency of Indigenous traders adapting to a changing world. In the mid-Atlantic on June 7, 1957, the British aircraft carrier HMS Ark Royal meets the replica of the Mayflower. The symbolic rendezvous linked centuries of maritime history, from early transatlantic voyages to the modern era of naval aviation, uniting two distinct legacies of exploration. A juke joint in Belglade, Florida, photographed in 1941, stands as a lively refuge for black agricultural workers during the Great Depression. Marion Post Wolcott's image captures the spirit of music and resilience that flourished even amid poverty and racial segregation in the American South. A woman tests a gas-resistant baby stroller in Hextable, England in 1938, reflecting Britain's anxious preparations for chemical warfare before World War II. The peculiar inventions symbolize the widespread fear of gas attacks that haunted Europe since World War I's devastating use of poison weapons. A 1943 photograph shows Austrian officer Kurt Waldheim serving in the German Wehrmacht during World War II, decades later. As President of Austria, revelations about his wartime past led to accusations of complicity in Nazi crimes and a ban from entering the United States. German soldiers, full of excitement, ride westward in 1914 at the start of World War I, believing the war would end quickly. The photo, titled "Trip to Paris," captures the tragic optimism that preceded years of trench warfare, death, and the collapse of empires. The British nuclear submarine, HMS Conqueror, flies the Jolly Roger after sinking the Argentine cruiser General Belgrano during the Falklands War in 1982. It remains the only sinking of a ship by a nuclear-powered submarine in combat, a symbol of naval power and controversy. Fishermen bring the body of Lord Mountbatten ashore after his assassination by the IRA in Mullaghmore, Ireland, August 1979. Though pulled alive from the wreckage of his boat, he succumbed to his injuries, marking one of the most shocking political killings in modern British history. Japanese soldiers marched triumphantly in Nanking in 1937 after the city's fall, celebrating their conquest. Behind the spectacle of victory, the Nanking Massacre unfolded, one of the darkest chapters of the Second Sino-Japanese War, where atrocities against civilians shocked the world for generations. The B-17 Flying Fortress, TS, limps home after a fierce dogfight on July 14, 1943. It was struck by a head-on collision with a German FW-190 whose dead pilot remained at the controls. Despite catastrophic damage, the American bomber's crew survived, an enduring symbol of wartime courage and luck. A serene view of Jusu Garden on West Lake, Hangzhou, captured on glass plate in 1911, shows visitors strolling amid pavilions shaped by Chan Buddhist aesthetics. Taken during Charles Freer's trip, the image preserves a tranquil moment in China's artistic and spiritual heritage before modern upheavals. Princess Diana's revenge dress, worn in June 1994, captured global attention as she appeared radiant in black just hours after Prince Charles admitted infidelity. The striking image redefined her public image from wounded royal to independent icon, turning fashion into a powerful act of personal defiance. Director Akira Kurosawa stands on the set of Ran near Mount Fuji in December 1984, surrounded by the disciplined artistry that defined his films. The masterpiece, inspired by Shakespeare's King Lear, blended Japanese epic tradition with human tragedy, marking one of cinema's grandest achievements. President Franklin D. Roosevelt inspects troops with Liberian President Edwin Barclay at an airstrip near Monrovia in January 1943. The meeting symbolized U.S. cooperation with Africa during World War II, as Liberia's strategic airfields played a key role in Allied logistics across the Atlantic. The city gate of Szydłów, Poland, photographed around 1936, stands as a reminder of the country's medieval fortifications. Known as the Polish Carcassonne, Szydłów preserved its walls and Gothic charm for centuries. Just a few years later, this peaceful town would be drawn into the turmoil of war. A young member of the Hitler Youth replaces a street sign honoring Tomasz Masaryk with one bearing Adolf Hitler's name in 1938. The act, performed after Germany's annexation of the Sudetenland, symbolized the erasure of Czechoslovak identity and the swift imposition of Nazi rule across Central Europe. Members of Company H 44th Indiana Infantry pose for a portrait around 1864. Their faces hardened by years of combat. These men fought in many of the Civil War's most brutal battles, from Shiloh to Chickamauga, representing the endurance and sacrifice of ordinary soldiers in a divided America. Sackville Street in Dublin lies in ruins following the Easter Rising of 1916, a pivotal rebellion against British rule. The photograph captures shattered buildings and smoke drifting through the air, symbolizing both the destruction and the birth of modern Irish nationalism in the heart of the city. Searchlights sweep the night sky over Los Angeles during the so-called Battle of Los Angeles in February 1942, believing the city was under Japanese attack. Anti-aircraft guns fired into the dark. No enemy aircraft were ever found, leaving panic, confusion, and enduring speculation about what truly happened. In 1917, Prince Alexander of Serbia meets Ante Trumbac of the Yugoslav Committee in Greece to negotiate a unified South Slav state. Their discussions would later lead to the creation of Yugoslavia, an ambitious project born from war, nationalism, and the dream of South Slavic unity. John F. Kennedy takes the oath of office at the U.S. Capitol on January 20, 1961, surrounded by Eisenhower, Lyndon Johnson, and Richard Nixon. The scene marked the passing of leadership to a new generation, captured forever in history as Kennedy called Americans to a new frontier. Allied soldiers gather in the shattered remains of Coventry Cathedral for a service on May 13, 1945. The bombed-out church, left in ruins by German air raids, became a powerful symbol of British endurance and the hope for peace at the war's end. Protesters stand outside the Surinamese consulate in Amsterdam on December 8, 1987. Denouncing the December murders under Desi Boutros' regime. The demonstration reflected growing international outrage against political repression in Suriname and the global demand for justice for the victims of state violence. Crowds fill the Oktoberfest grounds in Munich in 1956, surrounded by beer tents, carnival rides, and music. The post-war festival, once halted by conflict, had become a celebration of renewed German identity and optimism, drawing visitors from around the world to its lively heart. A meeting of the Mladoraci takes place in 1934 among Russian exiles advocating for a fusion of Tsarist monarchy and Soviet communism. Their motto, Tsar and the Soviets, reflected the era's ideological confusion. The movement faded after World War II, leaving only a curious footnote in exile politics. Rows of SBD Dauntless dive bombers line the assembly floor at the Douglas Aircraft Plant in El Segundo, California, in 1943. These planes, crucial to America's naval victories in the Pacific, represent the massive industrial effort that transformed the United States into the arsenal of democracy. A rare snowfall blankets the hills of Yunnan, China, between 1943 and 1945. A small house stands near a frozen waterhole, quiet and still. The photograph captures a fleeting moment of serenity in wartime China, far removed from the battles that raged across the country. Young girls at the Boston Trade School for Girls sketch Christmas designs around 1910. Their drawings would later be sold to support the school's vocational training. The image reflects the early 20th century push to educate and empower working-class girls through practical and creative skills. Germans S personnel at Majdanek extermination camp hold metal containers of Zyklon B gas in July 1944. The chemical was used to murder thousands in the camp's gas chambers. After liberation, these men were tried and executed, their actions standing as enduring evidence of Nazi crimes against humanity. Charles J. Guiteau poses for a portrait in 1881, his unsettling stare betraying his madness. That same year, he shot President James Garfield, claiming divine inspiration. Months later, Garfield died, and Guiteau was hanged singing hymns and declaring himself a hero until the very end. In the Netherlands on September 10, 1950, cameras capture the country's first televised soccer match between PSV and FC Eindhoven. The grainy broadcast marked a new era in Dutch sports, as television brought the energy of live football into homes for the very first time. Dr. John Britton holds a .357 Magnum revolver in 1993, the weapon he carried for protection while performing abortions at a Pensacola clinic. Despite the threats, he continued his work until he was murdered that same year by an anti-abortion extremist, a tragedy in America's long struggle over reproductive rights. Protesters in 1971 hold signs reading, "Scheel and Brandt giving away our land," condemning West Germany's recognition of Czechoslovakia's borders under Ostpolitik. For many Sudeten Germans, the agreement meant a painful acceptance of post-war reality, reigniting debates over identity, loss, and reconciliation in divided Europe. Germany's invasion of Poland on September 1, 1939, unleashed the Second World War. 2 days later, Britain and France declared war on Germany, transforming a regional assault into a global conflict that would last 6 devastating years and reshape the course of human history. German footballers walk off the field in disappointment after losing to Switzerland in a 1938 World Cup replay. The defeat was a symbolic blow to Nazi propaganda, which sought to portray German athletic superiority, as sports became another arena for political pride and national image. The 9th Avenue derailment of September 11, 1905, sent a train crashing from an elevated track. In New York at 7:05 a.m., the tragic accident killed several passengers and shocked the city, leading to major safety reforms in the rapidly expanding urban transit system. Young Yugoslav citizens cheer and wave flags at a relay of youth celebration in the 1980s, honoring Marshal Tito's legacy. The event, once a unifying national ritual, became increasingly symbolic after Tito's death, reflecting both pride and the fading cohesion of socialist Yugoslavia. The UX Tower in Belgrade stands, heavily damaged after NATO bombings in 1999. Once a symbol of Yugoslav modernity, the building became an emblem of the war's destruction. Years later, it would be rebuilt, reflecting Serbia's struggle to recover from the scars of the Balkan conflict. A young Yves Saint Laurent stands solemnly at Christian Dior's funeral in 1957, just 21. He had been chosen to succeed his mentor as head designer. The moment marked the beginning of Saint Laurent's legendary career and the continuation of Dior's profound influence on global fashion. Kamehameha III, King of Hawaii, sits for a daguerreotype around 1853, becoming the first Hawaiian monarch ever photographed. His reign saw the kingdom's modernization and growing contact with the West, preserving a sovereign identity even as global pressures began to encroach on island independence. Boston Corbett, the eccentric hatmaker who killed John Wilkes Booth, poses in uniform around 1865, known for his self-castration to resist temptation. Corbett was hailed as a hero after avenging Lincoln's assassination, but later descended into madness, vanishing mysteriously after escaping an asylum. A Manchurian bride poses gracefully in her ornate wedding attire. Circa 1870, the layered silk robes, intricate embroidery, and elaborate headdress reflect centuries of regional tradition and artistry, capturing a timeless image of dignity, beauty, and cultural heritage in a rapidly changing world.